Now back to the Wisconsin Vegetable Garden Radio Show with your hosts, Joey and Holly Baird.
It's the Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener Radio Show, the WisconsinVegetableGardener.com, your destination for all things gardening, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, 840 videos, and a whole lot more, all for free, all to help you. We're going to talk about herbs because herbs are one of those vegetables in which people forget to plant, choose not to plant, but they're still expensive at the grocery store. The quarter of an ounce or the ounce of fresh cut herbs that are not really that fresh cut, but they look like it and they're expensive. And it's so simple to grow them at home, whether indoors, outdoors, container, raised bed, or ground.
Right. So herbs are, like Joey said, they're easy to grow and they're kind of fun to grow too, especially if you grow them indoors year round. During winter, it's nice to have that little freshness growing in your window or wherever you can put them. So,
well, basil, I think, is one of the most common herbs that you can grow, and there's so many varieties of basil, or so many, I guess, fragrances, taste. What would you? I guess varieties.
I guess, yeah. Basil is what pesto is made out of, and if you ever made pesto, you know that you need a lot of basil for that. And there's different types of pesto you can make, but the main one is with basil. So if you can grow basil, you can make your own pesto, and that's something that a lot of people enjoy. So that's something to think about. But there's many different varieties of basil. There's anything from lemon basil, lime basil, cinnamon basil, licorice basil, Thai basil. So there's many different varieties you can check out. Ones that maybe you want to try with your cooking, see what happens, or just grow a traditional basil. Right.
I want to give the number out for the IV Organics hotline for the contest for In My Garden one more time, 414-444-5250, just so everybody catches that, for a $10 voucher. Email is required. You have to have an email for that to happen. Now, chives is something very easy to grow. Takes about a year. I mean, you can get all of these that we're talking about, you can buy at your garden center. You can buy at Blue Mills that are already started. You can also start these very easily from seed, too. Chives is an easy one. You got onion chives, you got garlic chives, so you make your choice. And then once it gets established, let's say 2-3 years, even earlier than that, you can take and divide that clump of chives and pass them out, plant them around the edge of your garden, give them to people. There's a lot of things you can do with those. So chives
now,
is another.
You want to be aware too, because they can easily overtake an area as well. So just keep that in mind. There's no harm in growing them in a container if you don't want to take that chance of them overtaking.
Now, for a farm boy like me, I didn't know what coriander was, because some of these vegetables have a couple of different names. Coriander is actually cilantro, but coriander is the seed of the cilantro. So I don't understand why they just don't call it cilantro seed. But anyway, that's an easy one to grow. But like we talked with Shauna Coronata a couple of weeks ago, the cilantro grows it goes to bolt extremely quickly. The heat makes it go to seed. It produces the flower and it gets very bitter. So you can try to grow that more in a partial shade area, 3 to 5 hours of sunlight. We've been able to do that in a couple locations, and it's worked very well. And dill is a plant.
Okay, so you want to be careful with dill.
Yes, in some places it is considered an invasive species.
Right.
Okay.
But they do attract some really neat caterpillars that will turn into beautiful butterflies. But dill will take over quickly. We planted some dill in, what was that, a container?
In a container.
Yeah, and then it seeded.
And we turned that area that the container was into
a garden spot.
200 square foot garden spot. And the following year, in the next 2 years, we got 1 gallon, 2 half-gallon mason jars of clean dill seed.
Because it just reseeds itself. It keeps growing, and it doesn't take over terribly, but you need to pull it out before it gets to seed. So if you're going to grow dill, we would probably suggest growing in a container. And
that was 3 years ago. It's taken the last 2 years to rid that garden bed of the dill. And we still have 1.5 gallons of fresh dill seed or dill seed that we've grown ourselves. So it's a great thing to grow, but you just got to be careful of what you have got. Another one that you need to be very cautious about growing is mint. Mint has an aggressive root system, and some of you may have mint growing on your property right now, and you're regretting it because it can take over a lot of area very quickly. If you're going to put it in the ground, grow it in a container, bury that container at ground level so it looks like it's in the ground, but it's not really, because it will just eradicate anything and take over. And unless you can get all the roots out, chemical treatment is about the only thing you can do to get rid of it.
So then there's parsley, and there's a couple different types of parsley as well, depending on what you're going to use it for. And a lot of people like parsley, especially in things like soup. And
It's a nice sweet addition to any dish.
Right. It's a nice, and it also makes a nice garnish as well. Pretty easy to grow. I don't think we've ever had any problems growing it.
No, very easy to grow. And in some climates, and we've had it here in Wisconsin, some of the really mild winters, these will overwinter. Rosemary is one that will overwinter if the conditions are favorable and the plant's large enough. Okay, sage is another one, tarragon's another one, and thyme is a easy ground cover to grow. And you can grow these again from seed, or you can grow these from actual plant starts from blue mells. Now, if you,
I just wanted to mention as well, we're talking about herbs and maybe why how to grow them and how to be aware of what you're growing, but there's reasons you should grow them too. When they're fresh, they're obviously cheaper to grow than to buy, but you can also dry them, and you can use things like lemongrass. We like to grow lemongrass, or even mint. You can put that in a tea. I'm sure a basil tea would probably taste okay too, and so there's an option there. If you like a nice herbal tea, that's an option too, that you can make your own tea essentially.
And we've been very successful at growing parsley, sage, thyme, and basil indoors. Rosemary is a hit and miss, and we'll explain more of that in our question and answer segment, because we have a question about growing rosemary indoors and why it's not doing so well. But and chives would grow very well indoors too. And when I'm talking about growing indoors, I'm talking about in a window, south-facing window, 5-6 hours of sunlight, maybe 4 to 6 hours of sunlight, minimal sun, but it needs some sunlight, and they grow very good. And you can continue to trim them back, and they'll grow as long as you have good nutrient soil and a good water. You got to keep these things watered. The rosemary.
So I have a rosemary plant indoors. It is a small bush, and it's turning brown and dying out. What is wrong? Or drying, and what is wrong?
Rosemary is one of those plants, one of those herbs that just really doesn't like to be indoors. No matter what you've done. We had this happen a couple years ago. We had a rosemary plant. We started from seed. It was about 2 years old, got about a foot high, and just started dying off. It had adequate water. It wasn't too wet. It wasn't too dry. But rosemary just does not like to be indoors for whatever reason. And some people are able to fidget that to make it last longer. Other ones, it just doesn't work. So if you can get that plant established or buy it from the garden center blue mells, you can go ahead and get it and move it outside. But yeah, rosemary, it just doesn't work well indoors. You can get it established, but take it outside and try to turn it into a perennial. Let it grow all the time outdoors.
Right. Well, you could grow it for a little while, but it's not gonna be so good after a while.
If you're in the Milwaukee or surrounding areas, just tune your radio to 860 AM or FM 106.5. You can also find links on our Facebook pages, The Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener and Home Canning. Our website, thewisconsinvegetablegardener.com, click on the radio tab at the top of the page, then click on the Listen Live button, and you'll have immediately access to our live program. Mobile devices work very well also. Go to your app store and download for free the TuneIn app or the Simple Radio app. Then search WNOV 860, save it to your favorites, and you can have access to our radio show live wherever you're at in the world. Our radio program will also have podcast replay under the radio tab several days following the live broadcast. You can find all of these links in the show notes below. Our show airs 9 to 10 a.m. Central Standard Time every Saturday, March through the end of October. And we want to thank our sponsors, because without them, this would not be anywhere possible. You can find all of their links under the radio tab on our website at thewisconsinvegetablegardener.com.
For more information, please visit thewisconsinvegetablegardener.com.